What's going on, traders? Welcome back to the weekly Forex outlook and reviews. So it's going to be a very interesting week since we had Easter Friday and then bank holiday coming up. NFP results were very good for the dollar, and I'm really expecting the dollar to start strengthening next week. But if we take a look at gold here very quickly, look at the reaction that happened after the news. I mean, was this around the news time or was this just after the news? Really doesn't matter, but good news for the dollar, and we see this rallying to the upside. So it'll be very interesting to see what is happening. I've been quite broad-ish with the analysis this week, just to make sure that you can get an idea of what could be happening from a structural / behavioral perspective. So let's take a look at our first pair today, which is pound USD. We're going to be looking at 11 pairs. And just remember, this is of my own opinion. So this is not financial advice. Please make sure you follow your own strategies and stick within your own risk tolerance. So the overall structure of this market has been making lower lows and lower highs. Now, we can see there's been no strength in the pound recently. I do believe that this is going to start to change around, seeing as the lockdowns are starting to ease and cases in the UK are getting better. But obviously, we know what's happening with Europe in terms of their cases going into a third lockdown. So we should see some weakness from the euro. Playing ball with pound and the dollar might be a little tough this week, but we'll see. I'm hoping in that because of the bank holiday on Friday, with London and Frankfurt not involved in the markets, that the effect of or the reaction of the NFP results will follow through into next week, as opposed to seeing it follow through on Friday. I think it was Friday. So anyway, so we saw that the market was pushing to the downside. We see a really strong pullback here. Now, the level that's really important to me is this level over here. This is a previous lower high that made the low. And in my opinion, we're still sell bias on this structure. So I would view this level here around 38.74 as more of a retest level in the market. And if prices come back to it and fails to break above it, then I think I'll be looking for continuation sells from this key level. Now, we do have an intraday trend you want to be mindful of. So once we start scaling down to like the hourly timeframes, you'll see these higher highs and higher lows. The only time I'm really going to be looking for sells on this structure, again, is if the market starts to break and starts to form lower lows and lower highs. And then if it does, I'll anticipate the market to come back down to some of these target sells here around 36.83.5. It is around 182 pip range here, so enough range for intraday, even swing traders to be taking advantage of this. If you're looking to take trades with about 7 to 10 pip stop loss from intraday timeframes, you have more than enough range to do so. And if you want to take swings with, let's say, 20 to 30 pip stop losses, or even more in this instance, then you're well in your ranges to do that. So I think this is kind of the idea. I want to see the dollar start strengthening, and I do want to see this move to the downside. If it doesn't, then it is what it is. I think the structure is highlighting now a bullish sentiment, but until we break above 38.74, we cannot do anything else but other than suggest that this is still sell bias until the markets tell us otherwise. So that's my analysis on pound USD. The next pair that we'll take a look at is pound JPY. Now, we can clearly see that the overall structure of this market has been pushed into the upside. We've been making higher highs and higher lows. We haven't broken above the brick wall. And we had a very significant level here around 152.39, where price created a major high around the middle of last month, which was March. And then we finally broken above it pretty convincingly, to be honest with you. We have had the retest of this level, so it'll be very interesting now to see the markets continuing to push to the upside. I reckon if we start breaking above some of these levels here, around 153.16, then we could see a continuation above. I'm speaking out loud as I'm trying to type. A continuation to the upside, so looking for buys. Yeah, we know what they say about multitasking. Buys above. Alrighty. Okay, buyers above this level here around 153.16 for a continuation up. I think I'd much prefer the retest just to see the exhaustion of this market and a continuation. There's nothing to suggest yen strength, and you'll see that as we go across the board here. And if we look at pound USD, there's a lot more to support pound strength than there is yen strength. So I think buy bias on this structure, looking for a retest around 152.39. If we don't come back to these levels, then just a break close above 153.16 for a continuation to the upside. Next pair we'll take a look at is euro yen. Now the euro is not strong, and you're going to go on to see this in a moment. We know what's happening in Europe with the third lockdown. I do hope they manage to resolve it and things don't get out of hand. But we can see that the yen is weak versus the pound. And if we're seeing the yen being weak versus the euro, then it does add confluence to our pound JPY bias of being buy bias moving into next week unless something drastic happens. With this structure of this market, we have just broken above a significant level here around 130.02. You can see a level where price created the lower high after this reversal here. We failed to break above for quite a long time, and then we've just broken straight through it. I'd like to see price come back to retest some of these levels around 130.02 for a continuation up to around 130.58 for target buys. And if price doesn't come back there, then I would say to myself, well, look, if price starts to break this brick wall, then we have a break close below some of these structures here, then we may see a continuation or a reversal starting to play in the market. But we'll just wait patiently. I think buy bias is the safest option. So let's stick to that until the markets talk to us and tell us otherwise. Next pair we'll take a look at is USDCAD. Now, I do suspect dollar to strengthen because of the NFP news. But this structure has been pushing up bullish for some time. We created an area in the market where price failed to break above for quite a significant amount of time around this 126.22 level. We can see now price is starting to break close below some significant structural higher lows here. And I mean, to be honest with you, the only time I'll be convinced to take buys is if price decides to break back above 26.22 for targets back to some of these highs here. Around 26.89. Now, if the markets don't pull back and start to break above those structures, then I think there's no other option than just to listen to the market structure, which is creating lower lows and lower highs. Wait for a break close back below some of these structures here. And then you know the deal. We'll just be looking for the retest and the continuations to the downside. I kind of am preempting here that the dollar will strengthen and that the dollar should just take over the markets next week. I could be totally wrong here. So that's why I'm being a bit cautious with USD CAD. I do like to focus on behavior and structure first before I focus on anything else. But there's just a kind of whiff that something's not right in the markets. But we will see. That's kind of my overview on this pair. Next pair we'll take a look at is USDJPY. I mean, great analysis from last week, other than the fact that there just wasn't great opportunities to jump on this pair from a higher time frame perspective. It was evident once price broke out of this consolidation that there'll be a very high chance we'll continue to the upside. I do not know where this market's going to go from here, other than the fact that yen is weak. Dollar has had good news, and I do believe this should continue up, meaning that if we break above some of these key levels here, then I do believe that we're going to have a continuation to the upside after this break. This level here that I've marked out is only significant for, well, I guess, two reasons. It could be a retest level in the market, pulling back, collecting more orders before a continuation back to the upside, giving us around 132 pip range. But if we don't pull back, then it's just going to be a break above 110.86 for continuation buys on USDJPY. Now, as I mentioned, the euro is weak, and you can clearly see that here with Euro New Zealand dollar, which adds confluence to our euro yen analysis, identifying yen weakness and the structure being bullish. So we should see a continuation over there. And here with Euro and New Zealand dollar, I'd look for sells all day long on this. Now, this is a level that I'd look out for as my last lower high. So as long as price stays below this level, we're good for sells. We can look at this level as a retest level in the market. So if price does pull back, you can trade it. It does kind of start turning into a range, which becomes messy. And looking to the left here, you can see quite a bit of traffic that you might find some problems. So probably just wait now for the break, which I have identified here, which is a significant level at 67.32, and then look for some target sells with an 82 pip range back down to some of these structural lows here, which is the last consolidation that price broke out of. And this is where you're going to find the most traffic around 66.34. Next pair we'll take a look at is Euro Aussie dollar. To be honest with you, I do not know what's happening with this pair. We can see it's really, really choppy and messy. Lots of traffic, lots of wicks, gaps that have been filled, structures that are not breaking highs or lows. And I view this as a consolidation. So we'll put a red flag on this one and maybe come back to this the following week. The next pair we'll take a look at is Euro USD. Now, we know the euro is weak and we know the dollar had good news. I do believe that it'll be safer to look for sells on this pair more so than buys, with the overall sentiment of the market creating lower lows and lower highs. Our previous lower high creating the last low. And as long as we stay below this structural level here, around 1805, then we should be good for sells once the structure starts to clear up. I would look for a break close below this structural low here around 1707, just for a clean close below, a nice shift in momentum, get out of this consolidation, and then continuing to look for those sells back to the downside moving into next week. Next pair we'll take a look at is Aussie dollar USD. As you probably can see here, the Aussie dollar is kind of doing its thing. If we take a look at Euro Aussie dollar here as well, we know the euro is weak, but we can see the Aussie dollar is, not doing too well against it. Here on Aussie dollar USD, we know the dollar is fairly strong, but we can also see here again that the Aussie dollar is not doing anything, or is doing enough to make sure that this market doesn't just rally or tank to the downside. It is still sell bias, if that makes sense, what I just said. We had a strong pullback. We've had the break of this structure level here. And now I would say the most important level to me would be this structural low around 75.43. A break close below this level will convince me that we're going to be continuing to the downside next week. And as long as we stay below 76.55 as either a potential retest level with around 114 pip range, we can look for some sells back down to some of these lows at 75.43. I'm more sell biased than I am buy bias. We'll have to let this clean up, but at the moment the structure is still sell bias. The next pair that we'll take a look at is New Zealand dollar USD. Now, as you can see, I haven't marked up too much here because the overall structure is consolidating. So as you can see, we have a structural low, a structural high, a structural low, and a structural high. Anytime we have 2 taps to the upside and 2 taps to the downside, more often than not, we're going to classify this as a range. Personally, I'd like to see price trade below or still within this range next week, and then look to see price break some of these structural lows around 69.46 to look for continuation sells moving into next week. We shall see what happens. The final pair that we'll take a look at is gold. Now, as I mentioned right at the beginning, the behavior of this market makes no sense with the news that's come out. Somebody may be able to make sense of it. I can't at the moment. I would say that I just think that this is a real strong impulsive move in the market. I do believe that this is going to be more sell bias than buy bias. And I think at the moment, I'm going to have to just wait for price to clean up before making a decision where the market's going to go. To be brutally honest with you, we had some great analysis last week. We identified here the lower lows and the lower highs in the market. And we did say that the overall sentiment of the market wasn't making new highs. With the dollar strength, we should continue down to some of these structural lows here. And if it starts to break, then back down to some of these lows. So I hope some of you were able to take advantage of this move. After the breakout, the continuation was around 223 pip move here on gold. And then the final move after the break close below was another 200 pips. So great move on gold. Very simple to trade last week. Let's let this clear up, then make a decision and then go from there. But I hope you've enjoyed the analysis, everybody. And if you did, just smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on notifications. And until next time, continue to trust the process.